All right, let's go ahead and start taking a look at the review for the test tomorrow. Number one, you were asked to find the coefficient of the k-squared terms in the expression after you simplify it. Now, if you forgot what a coefficient is, you'll notice over there on our word wall, we've added some words, and coefficient is one of those words that we've added. Coefficient is simply the number in front of the variable. In this case, I'm asking you, what's the number in front of the k-squared term? Now, before you do that, you do have to simplify the expression first. So that's what we're going to do over here. I'm going to start by using some distributive property. We're going to take negative 3 and distribute it. So negative 3 times 4k would be a negative 12k. Negative 3 times 9 would be a negative what? 27. I still got my negative 8k squared. I still got my 6k. And I'm going to do distributive property again. K times 4 would be a 4k. K times 3k is going to be a 3k squared. We're not done yet. We still need to simplify this. I'm going to combine all the like terms. So I'm going to take this k, and this k, and we're going to put them all together. So negative 12k plus 6k plus 4k would end up being a negative 2k. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my constants and add it with the other constants. Do you see any other constants up there? No. So I'm just going to bring that negative 27 down. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the k squared and this k squared, and I'm going to add them together. So negative 8k squared plus 3k squared would be a negative 5k squared. I'm done simplifying. That's as far as I can go. Now I can answer the question. And that question was, what is the coefficient of the k squared term? What number do you see in front of the k squared? Negative 5. So the answer I'm looking for on number 1 is negative 5. Just a little heads up. Tomorrow on the test, if you don't give me negative 5 and all you give me is this thing right here, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be wrong. That's not what the question asked for. The question asked for the coefficient of the k squared term. So keep that in mind. Okay, number 2. Albert wants to buy a refrigerator that is 6 feet tall. The refrigerator has a width that is 1.75 times its depth. Which equation best represents V, the volume of the refrigerator, in terms of its depth, x? All right, so let's get a visual here. Here is my refrigerator. It says here that the refrigerator is 6 feet tall. We don't know how deep it is, so I'm going to call the depth x. It says it is 1.75 times its depth. That's what the width is. So right here, this is going to be 1.75 x. So now that I have the dimensions, now I can find the volume. How do you find the volume of a refrigerator? How do you find the volume? Length times width times height. That's all that is. Multiplying length, width, and height. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to multiply 1.75x times x times 6. We're going to multiply all those together. So if I multiply 1.75 times the 6, I'm going to end up with a 10.5. If I multiply x times another x, I'm going to end up with an x squared. Therefore, the volume ends up being 10.5x squared, which makes D the correct answer. D would be the correct answer. I thought we were supposed to find an equation. Well, we did. That is the equation. No, we didn't solve it. We didn't solve for x. We don't know what the actual width and depth is. Number 3, which of the following expression is the equivalent to this? So we're going to simplify here. We're going to start by using some distributive property. We're going to do 2 times 3x, which is going to give me a 6x. 2 times a negative 4 is a negative 8. We distributive property again with 3. 3 times 8x is 24x. And 3 times a negative 4 is a negative 12. going to go in there and simplify here. I'm going to combine my like terms, x, x, and x. If I put all those x's together, how many x's would that be? 32 x's. Now I'm going to take the constants and add them together. So a negative 8 plus a negative 12 would end up being a negative 1. And at this point, there's nothing else I can do. That is as simple as it gets. Simplified. Therefore, the correct answer here should be B, 32x minus 20. And that was number 3. Number 4. If the line y equals 3/4 x minus 4 is drawn on the coordinate grid, and a second line is drawn with a slope of 1, which statement best describes the relationship between these two graphs? All right, so A says that the second line is going to be steeper than the first line. Is that true? The second line is going to be steeper. How do we know that? You can actually go to your calculator and graph it and look at it. That's one way. Or you can simply look at the slope, right? Because the bigger the slope is, the steeper the line is. And 1 is bigger than a 3/4, which means it's going to be steeper. So A is the correct answer to number 4. It is steeper. Number 5 says the volume of a sphere can be found using the formula V equals 4/3 pi r cubed, which expression represents the volume of a sphere that has a radius of 3x squared y. So we're going to use the formula they gave us. I'm going to replace r with the radius, which is 3x squared y. Now it does say we need to take that radius and cube. So everything in parentheses needs to be taken to the third power. That includes the 3. 3 to the third power is not 9. What is it? 27. 3 to the third power is 27. What's the rule with the exponents? What am I going to do with the 2 and the 3 here? Add. Nope. Multiply. 2 times 3 is going to give us a 6. 2 times 3 is 6. Which means I'm going to end up with y to what power? There's a 1 right there. 3. So, after I cube my radius, I end up with 27 x to the 6, y to the third. We're going to take that, and we're going to multiply it with 4/3 pi. Here we go. I'm going to multiply 4/3 times 27. 4/3 times the 27 is going to give us a 36. Of course, I still got the pi, I still got the x to the 6, and I still got y to the third. Therefore, the volume of this thing is 36 pi x to the 6, y to the third, making D the correct answer. Number 5 should be D. Number 6, which of the following describes the greatest common factor given the polynomial? We're looking for the GCF here. So if I look at the coefficients, the 18, the 12, and the 36, what's the biggest thing that will go in an 18, a 12, and a 36 even? 6. 6 will go into all 3 of those coefficients. Now, if you notice, your choices there's only one choice that even has a 6 in it, and that is C, which happens to be the right answer. However, tomorrow on the test, I may decide to give you choices that have all 6s in it. So what are we going to do then? Well, look, we got an x to the third, we got an x to the fourth, and we got an x squared. We're looking for the GCF. The most they have in common is a x squared. Same thing with the y. We got y to the fourth, we got y and y cubed. The most they have in common is a y. Therefore, the GCF again should be 6x squared y. Number 7, the total surface area of the cylinder can be found using the formula S equals 2 pi r times h plus r, where r represents the radius and h is the height, which expression represents the total surface area given this cylinder. First thing I'm going to do is start by replacing the r with the radius, and I'm also going to replace h, the height, with 24x y squared. So that's what it looks like with the r and the h. replaced with the actual values. Now we're actually going to simplify this. First, I want to start by adding the height and the radius. What do I get when I add the height and the radius? What do you get when you add 24xy squared with a 12x squared y? Right? 36 x cubed y cubed. Everyone agree? I hope not, because that is incorrect. When you're adding, you can only add things that are alike. Are these two terms alike? No, this is an x, this is an x squared. This is a y squared, this is a y. Can I add these two things together? No, so don't. Leave those alone. I'm going to leave it as 24xy squared plus 12x squared y. You don't add them, you can't. They're not like terms. What I can do, though, is I can multiply this stuff right here. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to multiply this together. 2 times 12 would be a 24. I still have the pi, still got the x squared, and I still got the y. So here's what I have so far. 24 pi x squared y times 24xy squared plus 12x squared y. I need to finish this off. So I'm going to use some distributive property. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to multiply it with this. So 24 times 24. What is 24 times 24? What is that big number? Huh? 576. Notice we do have a pi symbol. X squared times an x is going to give us x cubed. Y times y squared is y cubed. I'm going to do distributive property all over again, but this time with the 12x squared y. So 24 times 12. 24 times 12 is 288. Notice there's going to be a pi symbol in there. X squared times another x squared is x to the fourth. A y times a y is going to be y squared. This is it. Can't go any further than that. That's the answer I'm looking for. So which choice is it? C. C would be the correct answer to number 7. Exactly what you guys got, right? Number 8. Which of the following expressions best describes one of the factors of the polynomial 8x squared minus 10x plus 3? First thing we're going to look for is a GCF. However, in this one, there is no GCF. Now, in this one, I don't know if you recognize it, but we're going to have to use bottoms up on this. Bottoms up is the method we're going to use here. Here's how we did bottoms up. We start by rewriting this as x squared minus 10x plus 24. Where did I get 24 from? The 8 times the 3. The leading coefficient times the constant. 8 times 3 is 24. The reason we did that is because we can factor this a lot easier. The factors of x squared minus 10x plus 24, let me see here. X times another x is going to give me the x squared part. Here's the tricky part, though. I need two numbers. These two numbers, when I multiply them together, they got to give me a 24, but they also have to add up to a negative 10. Negative 4 and negative 6. Are the signs that big of a deal? Yes, so be careful with your signs. That's not it, though, because underneath that 4 and underneath the 6, I'm going to put a number. Anybody know what number we're going to put? 8. That's the leading coefficient. We're going to reduce these fractions here. 4 over 8 reduces to 1/2. 6 over 8 can also be reduced to, what is it? 3/4. But again, we're still not leaving like that. The method we're using is bottoms up. And the reason it's called bottoms up is because these bottom pieces, or the denominators, are coming up in front of the x. So now we're going to rewrite this as 2x minus 1. And this one over here is going to be written as 4x minus So those are the factors. Now notice the question says, which of the following expressions describes one of the factors? So now that we have it factored out, which one of these is one of the choices? 2x minus 1. Choice B. B would be the correct answer, number 8. Number 9. The two figures have the same area. These two figures have the same area. They want to know which equation can be used to find the dimensions of each of these figures. We're not actually going to find the dimensions. We're just going to find the equation that would help us get those dimensions. Now, notice here it says that the area of these two things are exactly the same. So what I want to do is I want to find the area of the trapezoid and make it equal to the area of the rectangle. How do you find the area of a rectangle? The rectangle, you multiply the length times the width. Anybody remember how to find the area of a trapezoid? It's right up here just in case you forget. All right? Trapezoid, it's 1/2 the height times base 1 plus base 2. That's the formula we're going to be using. I'm going to start with the easy one over here, the rectangle. I know to find the area of a rectangle, all we're doing is multiplying the length and the width. So I'm multiplying x. I'm multiplying x times x plus 2. And what do I get when I multiply those together? X squared plus 2x. Now I need to do a little more work over here to find the area of the trapezoid. So let me come over here. The height of this thing is x plus 2. Now watch this. I'm going to add the two bases. I'm going to add the 4x plus 8 and the 2x minus 6 right now. 4x plus 2x is going to give me a 6x. 4x and 2x is 6x. I'm also going to add up the constants. The 8 plus the negative 6. 8 plus the negative 6 is a positive 2. I need to multiply all three of those things together. The 1/2 times the x plus 2 times the 6x plus 2. Now I can do this in any order. I think what I'm going to do though is I'm going to multiply those two together first. I'll come back to the 1/2 in a minute. I'm going to use some FOIL or distributive property. X times 6x is going to give me a 6x squared. X times 2 is going to give me a 2x. 2 times 6x is a 12x. And 2 times 2 is a 4. I want to simplify that though. 2x and 12x would make a 14x. But remember, that's not it. I still got to multiply that by what? 1/2. Still got to multiply that by 1/2. So 1/2 times 6x squared would be a 3x squared. 1/2 times 14x would be a 7x. And 1/2 times 4 would be a 2. This is what I'm looking for. These are the two areas set equal to each other. So which one of those choices is the correct answer? Should be choice D. D would be the correct answer. Number 10. Which of the following is true about the two given functions? F of x equals 2/3 x. G of x is equal to 3/2 x minus 5. First choice says the two functions are parallel. Are those two lines going to be parallel to each other? No. How do you know that? Yeah, the slope's got to be the same in order for them to be parallel, and they're not. How about perpendicular? Are they got to be perpendicular? No. In order to be perpendicular, they got to be opposite reciprocals. They are reciprocals, but they're not opposites. One has to be positive, the other has to be negative. So let's see here. Choice C says that the y-intercept of f of x, which is this one right here, is going to be 5 units higher than g of x, than this one over here. Is this one higher than this one? Yes, it is. It's higher by 5 units. Therefore, C is the correct answer. 11. Jane is looking at the table. The domain is -3, -1, 0, 1, and 3. Remember, domain is x. The range is -21, -9, -3, 3, and 15. That's the y values. We want to know which of the statements is true. Now, the easiest thing to do here is to put it in our stat button and do a linear regression. So everybody go to your stat button. Go to stat, edits, and let's enter the data. We could do this by hand, but watch. The calculator will do the dirty work for us. Let's use it. Stat edits. L1 is where we're putting the domain, the x's. L2 is where we're putting the range, the y values. I want you to calculate a number 4 linear regression. And we're going to get something that looks like this. Y equals 6x minus 3. Do we all agree on that equation? Okay, this is what we end up with for the equation of that particular data. Now, the first choice there says that the rate of change is a positive value. Rate of change is the same thing as slope. So the question is, do we end up with a positive slope here? Yes. The slope on this one is a 6. 4? That is correct. That is correct. Okay, let's go on here. We're almost done. Number 12. Number 12, we're asked to factor completely 3x to the 4th plus 375xy cubed. First thing we're going to look for is a GCF, and there is one in this problem. The GCF. Anybody found the GCF? 3 what? 3x is the GCF, which means what's going to go in the parentheses? 3x times what is 3x to the 4th? X cubed. 3x times what is going to give me the 375xy cubed? 125y cubed. Now, if you stop right there tomorrow, that would be incorrect because it says factor complete. We can still factor the x plus 3 plus 125y cubed. And that right there is the sum of cubes. So we're going to factor this out next. To factor that out, we're going to end up with a binomial times a trinomial. We did this right before the break. We're going to take the cube root of the first term. So I'm taking the cube root of x to the 3rd, which is x. I'm also going to take the cube root of this. The cube root of 125 is 5. The cube root of y to the 3rd is y. And because we are working with the sum of cubes, we should have a plus sign right there. That's the binomial. Now we need to figure out what's the trinomial. Now, remember when I told you that we said the two signs were going to be opposites of each other. So if I have a plus here, I should have a minus to start off with. And I also said the last one was automatically going to be a plus. Always, always, always. Now I need to figure out what's this first term here. The first term comes from squaring the first term in the binomial. In other words, if I square this x, I'm going to get a x squared. To get the middle part of your trinomial, all you're going to do is take the x and the 5y and multiply those two things together, making a 5xy. To get the last term in your trinomial, all we're doing is taking the last term in the binomial and squaring it. In other words, we're going to take the 5y and we're going to square it. What do you get when you square a 5y? No. 25y. 25y squared. Now that's not the answer either, right? We're missing one. We're missing the 3x in front. So make sure you don't forget about that. Now we're done. That thing is factored complete. So make sure you do that on the test. Complete. Number 13. You know what, guys? I'm going to come back to this one because this is going to take some time here. I want to make sure I do as many as I can before we leave here. Number 14. X plus 3 is one factor of the sum of cubes. Find the remaining factor of the, and that should be not the difference, but the sum of two cubes. All right, so it's basically like the one we just got through working. They're giving us the binomial. What they're asking us to do is find the trinomial part. That's what they're asking us to do. Well, we just did it. We said that the two signs are going to be opposites of each other. This is a plus, so this should be a minus. I also got through telling you that that is automatically going to be a plus, like the last one. First term is going to be an x squared. All I'm doing is squaring the x. What's the middle term going to be? 3x. That came from multiplying the x and the 3 together. And the last term is going to be what? 9. That's coming from squaring the 3. That's it. That's all they wanted. They wanted to know what's the other factor. That's the other factor. X squared minus 3x plus 9. 15. Write an expression that best describes the factor of the polynomial 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. This right here. Is there a GCF on this one? Nope. That's right. We're going to do bottoms up on this one. So I'm going to start by rewriting the polynomial as x squared plus 7x plus 12. Again, the 12 is coming from multiplying the leading coefficient and the constant. 6 times 2 is 12. That's going to make it easier for us to factor, because we know an x times an x is going to give us an x squared. The two numbers we're going to use are 4 and 3. Why? Because 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 plus 3 would give us a 7. But we're not done yet. Underneath that 4 and underneath the 3, we're going to put a 6. That's the leading coefficient. We're going to reduce those fractions. 4 over 6 reduces to what? 2/3. 3 over 6 reduces to 1/2. Don't leave it like that, though. And that's bottoms up. Bottom piece is coming up. So now we're going to have 3x plus 2. Again, that 2 is coming up in front of the x, so now we rewrite it as 2x plus 1. So these right here would represent our factors. Those are the factors. That's number 15. Number 16. X squared y over y squared to the negative 1 power times 3x to the negative 2y all over y to the negative 2 all squared. All right, so I'm going to start with this piece right here. Everything in the parentheses needs to be taken to the negative 1 power. So if I multiply 2 times negative 1, that gives me negative 2. There's a 1 on the y, so 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2. There's the first part. Now I'm going to move on to this part right here. Everything in the parentheses needs to be squared, including the 3. That 3 needs to be squared, so that would give me a 9. X to the what? Negative 4. Y squared. There's a 1 there. 1 times 2 is 2. And down here at the bottom, we're going to end up with y to the negative 4. So here's where I'm at so far. Now, there's a couple of different routes that we can go. I think what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to multiply straight across. Numerators with numerators, denominators with denominators. So up here at the top, I'm going to end up with 9. X to the, we're adding the exponents because we're multiplying. Negative 2 plus a negative 4 is a negative 6. A negative 1 plus 2 would be a 1. Now multiplying the denominators, we're adding the exponents, so a negative 2 plus a negative 4 would be a negative 6. Now we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep going here. There's a 1 on this y. When we divide, the rule says we subtract the exponent. So we're going to do 1 minus a negative 6, which would give us a, what's 1 minus a negative 6? No, 1 minus a negative 6. 7. That's not the answer. Can't have negative exponents, so let's fix it real quick before we leave here. we're going to have 9y to the 7th. X to the 6th should be down here at the bottom. That's what we should have for it. All right, test is tomorrow, guys. Test is tomorrow.